In today's video, we are going to cover factors to consider when investing in property. Like every other discipline, there are things that we need to take into consideration, and these are the ones that I will highlight to you within property investing. So welcome to my channel. My name is Genevieve Stafford Jack. The first factor that I'd like to highlight is that when we talk about property investing, it's really very attractive. However, it's easy to talk about something, but getting into the nitty-gritties of it is a completely different story. So factor number one, property may sound easy to get into. However, when you really get into the nuts and bolts of it, it can be quite tough. And here's what I mean. So we started this property investing journey, right? And we start off with, I'm going to listen to YouTube. Just as you're listening to YouTube, I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm going to explore this book. I'm going to listen to that podcast, and I'm following these people 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10. Right? You've got all of these things on lockdown and you're getting information. But there comes a time where you, with all this information that you're getting, you are not applying, right? Because it's easy to talk a talk, but it's a different story when you have to walk that walk. So now it comes time for you to make a commitment to yourself to say, I'm going to invest in property education. Yeah, you've made your investment. You start with the education and you start getting coaching. And then you find yourself like, oh, this is a lot of work. Now, this is why I say one of the factors to consider in getting in property is that it sounds easy. But when you really get to the nuts and bolts of things, it can be tough. It can be tough because you still got your 8 to 5 job. You still got all the other stuff that you had. Now, in your schedule, you have to start making space for this new baby. Because this is like a baby. You're going through this whole birthing process. You're going through this whole nurturing process and really feeding into your new baby. Where do you make the time? So this is factor number one to consider when starting your journey in property investing. Have you made time in your journey to apply the skill that you are learning? That's really important to consider. Factor number two. They say location. Yes, location is really important in various aspects in property investing. One of the things I want to highlight about location is that you may have an interest in the East Rand, because you'll say, in the East Rand in Gauteng, the properties are huge, the land is huge, I can do so much with it. But what happens is that you stay in the West Rand. So you buy this property in the East Rand because of its potential, and you have to rent this property out, or you have to buy, or you have to develop on this property, and there's some nurturing that needs to happen in this property. So every time you must drive from the west of Johannesburg to the east of Johannesburg, and that literally is worlds apart. Do you have the time and the dedication to see it through? Because at the end of the day, every time you go to your property, you're driving about an hour to your property and about an hour back. Now fast forward to when you've got tenants. Popo hits the fan. You need to go and mediate because you haven't gotten a property management company as yet. You have to take an hour to get there. And it's 11 o'clock at night. So these are the things, again, location. Oftentimes we don't believe that such lucrative opportunities are so close to us. But when you go through hurdle number one, which is education, and really start applying things, it's as if you are creating new lenses to see opportunities in front of you. Factor number three. Investing is not just a numbers game. A lot of people say, know your numbers. I 100% agree with them. Know your numbers, because with property investing, you invest with numbers and not with your emotion, right? But property investing is not just a numbers game. It's a people game. Where are you in terms of your people skill? And when I mean people skill, what if you've got tenants? You need to have that conversation with them. Do you go in guns blazing? Hey, this is my property. What are you guys doing on my property? Take your ish and get out of here. Or do you go in on like, let's understand what's just happened. Let's just understand. Some people will say to me, you didn't grow up in the rough side of life. People will start, interfering with you. And guys, I get that. So at the end of the day, back to location, that factor, consider where you want to invest, but also consider that you're going to also take your tenants through a screening process. But that's not to say that you're always going to get the best of the best, because tempers flare. But the bottom line of this particular point is I'm saying property is a people's game. You need to be able to understand from your people's skills, what should you develop as a property investor. And these are the things that you're going to learn along your journey. You see, what I needed to really develop over my time in terms of a people's game, I was using other people's money. Now, if I'm using other people's money, do you think people want to hear me blabbing? Or should I be listening and paying attention to what do investors need so that I can go and fulfill their needs? So my learning curve was, I've got one of these and two of these. So I need to double up here and zip it, lock it, and put it in my pockets. That's what my 5-year-old tells me. Imagine that. When you're in real estate, things will go wrong. In fact, in any discipline, things will go wrong. And if somebody has shared with you about their property journey that was so perfect, and that was like, the stars were aligned, the angels were singing, I really want to challenge that person. I want to challenge them because I understand how quickly things can go wrong. At a blink of an eye, where you think you've got this thing down on lockdown, things can go down. And talking about lockdown, here's an example. Just before lockdown hit, I had a deal on the table. Investor had gone through architecture, town plan, everything that they needed to double check in their due diligence over and above the due diligence I'd given to them in the proposal. They went to the financing house. And so 2 days before lockdown, can you believe it? Documentation already ready to go. A senior manager was supposed to put their stamp on it. And then we hit lockdown. We hit something that we never would have ever foreseen. Did you foresee that you were going to be in the middle of a global pandemic ever in your life? I would like to hear from you down in the comments below. Share with me. Think about when lockdown hit. None of us saw what was coming. None of us saw what was coming. And so that particular deal sat there for another 2 months, April and May. We got down to level 3 on the 1st of June. And a couple of days later, we heard from the financing house. Well, we're not financing anything. We're going to give these things finance a consideration in September. The deal was on lockdown, literally and figuratively. But did we see it coming? No. So the reality of life is that things will go wrong. We just need to make calculated decisions on how we are going to work around the situation. And I close on this last point. Why knowing your what in property investing is important. Understand, what am I here for? Understand, what is my cash flow position? Do I have money for closing costs if I'm going to go into a deal where I'm going to be the one financing it? Do I potentially have savings in my account that could help me with the deposit? And here's a grand question. Do I perhaps have equity to start off this whole property investing journey so that I can start off my portfolio using the equity I already have? There is so many things to consider in your what. Now, with the various strategies within property investing, you'll be able to know where you want to tap into. But coming from somebody like myself, I found that when I bought my house and I bought my flat and we bought the farm, it was easier to know you're going to the bank and you're only dealing with the bank and your financials, right? I think in my opinion, that it's easier to do that than it is to convince a property investor to part with his money, and we're both going to have a cut from it. Because oftentimes people use the carrot of other people's money as a lucrative way of getting people into property investing, not realizing that it can get tough if our people skills perhaps are not in place. It can get tough if the teaching around how do we handle and talk to investors is not in place. I mean, we have got loads of lessons that we've learned from investors. One investor will say, this is too run down for me. I can't invest in a property like this. Another investor would say, oh, this ticks all my boxes. Bring it on, baby. So in the journey of property investing, these are the factors that I've highlighted today that you may want to consider. I would love to hear more from you. Drop in the comments below, which of these factors do you believe is something that you need to consider and really give thought to? And for those of you that may not have started in property investing education, I would like to make an appeal to you. If you go down in the description below, there is free training that I've got on my website. You go onto my website, there's 3 hours of content readily made available for you to get your investing game on. What are you waiting for? You take good care, and I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode.